Welcome to Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. I'm Dale Meyer. You've probably heard church people talk about the priesthood of all believers. Everyone who believes in Jesus Christ can serve God. Well, that's easy for a minister to say, but what about a layperson going to work on a weekday morning? Joining me is Dr. Uwe Simonetto, Director of the newly formed Institute on Lay Vocation at Concordia Seminary. Dr. Simonetto, may I call you Uwe?
Please do.
Thank you for joining us on this Concordia Seminary podcast. Tell me about your life. Before you came to Concordia Seminary, what have you done for a living?
Well, a lot of stuff. I've been a journalist for 50 years by now, except next month exactly 50 years. Most of my life I spent away from my homeland, which is Germany, covering the United States, civil rights movement here, President Kennedy's assassination, Cuban Missile Crisis before that, the Vietnam War in Vietnam, Middle Eastern wars, assorted ones, France, Britain, the Chinese Cultural Revolution. And then at one point, when I was 50, I felt it was time to do something serious, and I enrolled at the Lutheran School of Theology in Chicago.
I was curious about, with that vast experience, how did you ever get involved with theology?
Well, there's a very funny story. I don't know whether we have the time to do that, but I drifted away from the church rather considerably. One day I was managing editor of a daily newspaper, and 1/3 of my staff were hard left-wingers. And so we always argued, especially Marxist points, and I made up Marxist quotations in order to defeat them at their own game.
You made them up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You fabricated Marx?
I fabricated Marx. I never fabricate biblical statements, but I did fabricate those. I mean, and I always gave precise page numbers, footnotes, all these things, but always from volume 2 and 3 of Das Kapital, knowing that these guys would never have read second and third volumes because it's unreadable, and they weren't bright enough to do that anyway. Anyway, at one point, after a very heated debate, one of my junior reporters, who was the most ardent Trotskyite leftist, feminist, lesbian on the staff, cornered me and said, "Simonetto, we know that you are the best Marxist scholar or Marx scholar on staff." And I sort of had to pinch myself. Yes, well, yes, I suppose so, I am, yes. "But you don't believe in Marx." I said, "No, I don't believe in Marx." So if Marx doesn't drive you, who drives you? And I heard myself, who hadn't been in church for 20 years, heard myself say, "Jesus Christ." And she stared at me and tootled off to her corner, and I went into my room, my office, and thought about it, and I said, "Well, I said it, it must be true." So then I got into my car, raced back to my apartment, called the pastor of the church next door and said, I'm joining you. He said, "Well, stay right where you are, because everybody else is leaving the church, so I'll come and visit you where you are." Incidentally, the name of that girl, or that woman, was Inka Gottschalk, and Gottschalk means jester of God. So I mean, this led years and years later to my attending seminary in Chicago, and I got an MA in theology there, and then moved on to Boston University to do a PhD in theology and sociology of religion.
Well, let's fast forward to Concordia Seminary in St. Louis.
Right.
Tell us about the newly formed Institute on Lay Vocation.
Well, the newly formed Institute on Lay Vocation tries to remind Lutherans of one of the great treasures of their doctrine, and that is that in our daily lives as lay people, in our work as journalists, as doctors, as plumbers, you name it, if we do work diligently and out of love for our neighbors, then we're rendering the highest service to God. And this makes us members of the priesthood of all believers.
Are you saying that a person does not have to become a minister
No,
to
you are
serve God.
No, you are a minister of sorts. You are what the Greeks called liturgoi, servants of God, liturgists in a sense. And that doesn't mean that you have to, sit in the newsroom and spout the gospel to everybody. That's not your job. Your job is to function as a lay journalist or as a baker, or whatever you're doing, and do it as well as you can, bearing in mind the recipient of your work, the beneficiary of your work. And if you do that, that is all you have to do.
I think I heard you say or imply that we have forgotten this emphasis in the church.
Yes, we have forgotten this emphasis, and under the influence of different theologies. Theology that thinks, you're already blessed and you're done and you're living in this wonderful paradise, almost paradise, which of course is schwärmerei or enthusiasm. We're not living in a paradise. We're living in a fallen world still, and an unredeemed world, and therefore we have to engage this world, not succumb to its ways, but engage this world and be active in this world.
Well, I'm still trying to understand the concept and help our viewers understand the concept. You're saying that when a layperson goes to work on a weekday morning,
right,
by virtue of going to that work, assuming it's an honest occupation, not running drugs or what have you, if it's an honest occupation, that is serving God and needs to be understood as service to God.
Absolutely, yeah. If you go to work intent on serving your client, your neighbor, if you're a baker and you make the best rolls in town and you make wonderful rolls and very tasty rolls that your customer will enjoy and will not die from, then you are serving God by serving your neighbor.
Now, we often hear people say, and they've often told me this, that they have worked with people for decades who were Christians, but it was never known, it was never revealed. How do you bridge the gap from making donuts to letting the person working with you in the bakery know that, Uwe or Dale is a Christian, and making them curious about the hope that is in us?
If you are a Christian, people will know, they will ask you questions. They will ask you, what drives you? As this woman asked me, what drives you? How come Marx doesn't drive you? Well, he doesn't drive me. You will, by the way you act, by the way you talk, you don't have to sit there and try and evangelize when you should concentrate on baking rolls. You can evangelize if you're asked to during a break. People will ask you about your beliefs, because they will ask you, why is it that you're acting the way you're acting? What drives you?
So it's not just a matter of continue to go to work on a weekday morning, but examine yourself. How are you going to work? How are you doing your work out there in the world? And are you becoming a curiosity, in the best sense of the word, that people are going to say, what is it about you?
Well, exactly.
That's what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. It's very, very interesting that in the Lutheran parts of the former East Germany, for example, the Christians, the committed Christians, minority obviously, who were not allowed to ever really enter high-ranking positions because they were discriminated against, yet they were magnets at their workplace simply by their comportment and by their diligence. So they had an enormous, the workshop, and in fact even administrative offices, in a sense became loci for evangelization, but evangelization without spreading the gospel. You simply made people curious and attracted people. You were magnets. And then, of course, when they ask you, then you can say, well, this is what is driving me.
Okay. Let me ask you what the Institute on Lay Vocation is and will be doing. What can we expect from it?
Well, it is already an institute that publishes a lot in Lutheran magazines, on our website. We have a radio program once a week on KFUO.
KFUO
is
being the radio station on campus.
On campus. We will hold classes. One is already en route, and there'll be more. We will obviously give lectures. We'll go around the countryside giving lectures. We're trying to sort of focus on various Christian professional groups, and hopefully we'll get them start a guild system. In other words, professionals of various vocations committing X amount of their time for service to the community. That is in addition to the service to God they render by doing their regular job.
It sounds like a wide range of offerings you're envisioning.
Yes, and it has to spread out. And you see, the one thing that we have to, why I think it is so important and why I think it's going to be received well is, I think many people have become aware of the fact that the me culture in which we are living has come to hit the wall.
Let's talk about that. The me culture has come to hit the wall.
Yeah, I think it's the me, people realize that the me first mentality that has driven us for the last 40 years, or 35, 40 years, has got us into all sorts of terrible troubles, societal troubles. Just think of the abortion rates, for example. It's me. It's not you, the child. It's me. I don't have any place for you. That sort of thing. The scandals in industry and in corporate headquarters, etc. All these things. I mean, anybody who follows the news realizes that there's something egregiously wrong, and it is all linked to the me culture. It's all linked to these people who think they can build themselves little paradises.
So going back to your earlier comments, when a lay person goes to work on a weekday morning, it's not simply about me making money for myself and for my family.
No, it's always you.
So you go to work with this changed attitude of loving your neighbor as yourself, Jesus' second great command.
Absolutely. It is the you, and it's you singular to begin with. You. My first focus is on you, not on me.
Okay,
So we have to change the attitudes of Western people altogether. You know.
Well, I'm convinced you're going to make a great start to do that. How do viewers find out more about the Institute?
Well, they can go on my website. Just go www.csl.edu.
www.csl.edu
and then scroll down to Institute on the Vocation, okay. And then you go to the various, you click onto my blog site or on the audio files, etc.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and it's been great to have you on this Concordia Seminary podcast. Can I assume that we can invite you back and talk about specific topics?
Oh, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Simonetto, and thanks to you for being with us. Please be sure to check out all the available podcasts as they become available to you. We'll see you again from Concordia Seminary.